Learning Russian is like sitting in a comfortable white chair. All four legs need to be in balance, otherwise the chair is useless to sit on. Now, each leg resembles one specific sub-skill of learning Russian, and these also need to be in balance, otherwise you'll struggle to have conversations in Russian. Curious which four sub-skills I mean? Let me show you. The first leg or skill that you need to practice is vocabulary. Why? Well, if you only know a handful of vocabulary, your conversations are going to sound very primitive and limited. But let's take the opposite example. If you only know a lot of words and your grammar is bad, but you do know words, and imagine you need to, let's say, buy furniture in a Russian shop, so you can only speak Russian. And if you enter the store and all you know how to say is "Купить удобно белый стул," then the sales clerk will understand what you mean. You want to buy a comfortable white chair, because what you literally said was to buy comfortably white chair. So even if your grammar is bad in this case, you will still be understood because the words that you're saying in and of itself are clear enough to help you be understood. So how do you learn vocabulary? Well, what worked well for me was a combination of audio lessons, apps, watching series, and reading books, because this all together teaches you a wide variety of words in context, so it becomes easier for you to actually remember what exactly you're learning. So the second skill or leg is grammar. Why? Well, contrary to what I just said in the previous skill, without grammar, you're going to sound quite, like a caveman or childish or primitive. Do you remember the example from the previous vocabulary skill? Купить стул удобно белый. It's enough to make you understood, but a bit childish, primitive, like a caveman almost. Now, with correct grammar, you would say Я хочу купить удобный белый стул. Sounds much better, right? Я хочу купить удобный белый стул versus купить удобно стул белый. I want to buy a comfortable white chair versus to buy a comfortably white chair. So you must learn Russian grammar at the same time as you're learning Russian vocabulary. Otherwise, it will be difficult to be taken seriously by native Russian speakers. But how do you do this? How do you learn Russian grammar in an effective way? Well, what worked well for me was a combination of audio lessons, because audio lessons taught me the bulk of my Russian grammar, and then watching Russian series and reading Russian books in order to see the grammatical rules in action, to see them in the real world. Okay, so the first two skills that you need to be focusing on are vocabulary and grammar. What is the third skill? The third skill is listening. Why? Well, if you struggle to understand what a native speaker says, it's going to be difficult to know how to respond and to actually have a real conversation. Imagine you're still trying to buy a nice, comfortable white chair, and you're in the furniture store, and as a response to what you said, the furniture sales clerk says, "Окей, понятно, вы ищете новый стул для обеденного стола, в зале или для офиса." If the only words you understood here were "okay," "новый стул," and maybe "office," it's going to be very difficult for you to understand what he means, and he's going to be standing there looking at him with big eyes and asking him 5 times to repeat himself. Медленно, пожалуйста. So, how do you practice listening skills? Well, what worked well for me was a combination of audio lessons, watching series, actually speaking to native speakers, listening to music, playing video games, and listening to audiobooks. So, anything that gets you to listen to real spoken Russian is good here. Now, we spoke about vocabulary as the first skill, grammar as the second skill, and listening as the third skill to learn Russian. What is the fourth skill? Well, the fourth skill is a skill that people tend to forget to practice. That's because it's difficult, frustrating, and you need to go out in the real world to practice. The fourth skill is speaking. If you forget to practice speaking, it will take ages for you to say a coherent sentence, and it will still be full of mistakes. So many people make this mistake. They learn words and grammar for months, if not years, and then when you meet a native speaker to have a conversation, they really have to fight to say a coherent sentence. And this then leads to demotivation and them saying like, Russian is so hard. Well, isn't it obvious that Russian is hard if you forget to practice the main thing to actually practice speaking? Of course it's hard, right? It's kind of like wanting to play football and just watching YouTube videos and reading about the theory, but never actually going out there on the field to practice. Then of course you're going to lose against the person that actually went out there to practice, but never watched any videos or read any theory. The person that went out there on the field and actually practiced is the one who's going to win, is the one who, in our case, is going to be speaking Russian. So how can you learn Russian? How can you actually practice speaking Russian? So what worked well for me was a combination of the following three things. First of all, I listened to audio lessons that helped me, that gave me prompt to speak, because that allowed me to speak, to try speaking from the comfort of my own home. Then second, I had conversations with native speakers, because that's also a great way to practice, though it can be a bit difficult to set up if you don't know anyone to practice with. And the third thing that I did when I got more advanced, I just recorded myself on my phone talking about all sorts of topics in Russian, and that was also great speaking practice then. So now that you know what the 4 essential skills are to learn Russian, it's time to put them into practice. So at the end of each week, I want you to ask yourself, did I practice vocabulary, grammar, listening, and speaking skills this week? And if the answer is yes, good job. Just continue whatever you're doing, you're on the right path. If the answer is no or kind of, then ask yourself, what do I need to add in order to make sure that I'm practicing all 4 skills? And then choose 1 or more activities to make sure so that you're practicing all 4 of them. You can mix and match apps, courses, tutors, audio lessons, series, movies, audiobooks, regular books, video games, anything you want, as long as you practice all 4 Russian skills on a consistent basis. But if you're tired of mix and matching all these different activities in order to learn Russian, my new course, Russian Conversations Unlocked, teaches you vocabulary, grammar, listening, and speaking at the same time. This means that all the 4 sub-skills of learning Russian are in balance, just like the legs of this chair, so that you can sit with comfort and also learn Russian with comfort. So click the link below in the description if you want to improve your Russian skills and also enjoy the process.